Hey.
Hey, hey. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, yes. All good.
Amazing. We are recording. Everything is okay. So, yeah, guys, that's our second part of vocal talk. So, today we're going to talk more about vocal acoustics, nerding about formants, harmonics, coupling, all this stuff. But first of
Yes.
all, please introduce yourself. Not like the last time.
Yeah, last time we just started like how did I start and everything and I didn't even
Yeah.
say who I was. So yes, my name is Ivan Mihaljevic, and what you did say is that I'm an authorized CVT teacher. Um so I work with singers all day long, all week long. I only take Sundays off usually. And At this point, I've worked with hundreds of singers across like more than 30 different countries, from absolute beginners who have never sung in their lives to Grammy Award winning professionals,
Cool.
so touring singers, which is all of it is a ton of fun. Then I'm also a performing singer myself. I have Pink Floyd tribute that I sing in, Croatian Pink Floyd show. And also, I work quite a lot as a session singer, and I so I did that before. I did that even more before. I still do it nowadays sometimes, but as much as I can manage with vocal coaching obligations. But for example, this year I recorded a really great EP for English guy called Dion Smith, and I'll
Mhm.
be touring with him this summer.
What is the style?
Rock, definitely rock. Hmm, I mean, rock is very broad, but
Yeah.
it's sort of like classic rock, but in a slightly more modern
Okay.
arrangement,
Cool. Cool.
almost. So yeah, it's not extremely heavy, but it's like I would say classic rock with some synths and stuff, some electronics. So it's an interesting combo.
Wow. Gonna check it. Send me
And
when it's done.
then I'm also doing a bit of scientific research in the about the voice. So I'm a huge nerd. I read a lot of papers and voice science materials, and so specifically, I've done some research on vocal acoustics, formants in specific. So last year we had this big paper published in Journal of Voice, um, titled "A Pitch Synchronous Study of Formants." And I should say that while I'm very nerdy about vocal acoustics, I am not a physicist myself, so I'm
Hmm.
not an acoustician. And we did have a physicist from Columbia University in our team. It was Dr. Julian Chen.
Hmm.
And then the other authors were Matthias On, Aaron Johnson, an ENT, and Ian Howell.
Wow.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
And I'm still searching for his book in a paper, hearing singing, right?
Hearing singing, I have it on Kindle. It's a really great book.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Yes. So that also, yeah, I also have a little bit of musical theater experience. Not a lot, but I sang a main role in a new rock opera back in 2011 in the Croatian National Theater.
Hmm.
Um, so that was interesting. It was very cool. It was very demanding in terms of time investment.
Hmm.
And I actually, after that, I did an audition for another musical, got the part, and then decided against it.
Wow.
So it was just I realized that while it's a lot of fun, it's so much work, it's so time consuming, and
Yeah, definitely.
it's not my main area of interest. So I
Okay.
was always more of a rock band guy than musical theater guy.
But I think that was a really cool experience.
Oh yeah, yes, for
Cool.
sure.
And about our time management, it was really fun. Like, can you do Monday like 3 p.m.? No, I have classes. What about you? Let's do Thursday. No, I have classes. It is like ping ponging, and then like Tuesday, second p.m. Yeah, right. Phew. Thanks, guys. Done.
Yeah, it was difficult to find a time we could both do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here, so I think it's gonna be really, really interesting finally. Again, I have all my notes here not to forget because it's always like that. You're doing some like vocal talks and stuff like that, and after that, like, oh shit, what about this and this and that? So I'm trying like to cover all the most important topics.
Hmm.
Okay. First of all, let's talk about why it's so important, especially in terms. And I guess this vocal talk is going to be more for teachers, coaches, INTI
Hmm.
specialists who are working also with voice disorders, because it's helping to navigate, rebalancing, recalibrate the vocal instrument. So why it's really important to have like the basic understanding of vocal acoustics, what are formants, what are harmonics, and how we can tune the vowels and stuff like that. Your opinion?
Hmm. Uh, so it can help us a lot in understanding how to make a voice more efficient. So the term resonance in terms of vocal production is used very vaguely very often, even by our colleagues. They will call all sorts of things resonance and talk about, sounds resonating in the head, in the chest,
Mhm.
in the pharynx, so on. But I mean, if we talk about vocal science, vocal acoustics, usually we talk about one main resonator, which is the vocal tract. So from the vocal folds to the mouth, and it can fork into the nose as well.
Quarter
And
tone or Helmholtz resonator?
sorry.
Quarter tone, quarter wave,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Helmholtz
Yes,
resonator.
yes, yes. And why is it important? Because it can impact vocal efficiency in a huge way. So if somebody is struggling hard to like hit a certain pitch, let's say, somebody wanted to sing this note here, and they're like, and it's very squeezed and tight, finding a better acoustic coupling for that can go from that into, I don't know. We can find different couplings. Like the one I usually demonstrate is like the F1H2 coupling going
Well,
for an
yeah.
hey. That's very easy. But you could find other couplings there that work equally well, or at least work better than the other one.
F1, H1, for example, the whoop tone.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
The
and again, when we were talking about for those who are like like I know what the format is, I know what the harmonic is, coupling, what's that? So let's start like for the really beginners. First of all,
yes.
to make everything more simple, formants basically the resonance spaces, like really simplified.
Yeah. So I I like to think in terms of transient theory of voice production. So
Mhm.
there's like two different ways you can look at voice acoustics and formats. One of them is the so-called source filter theory,
Mhm.
and then there's transient theory of voice production. You can arrive somewhat to somewhat similar conclusions using either like on a macro level, but on a micro level, I find that transient theory explains way better how things work. So basically, what we talk about is that each vocal fold closing instant, so as the vocal folds vibrate, gives a pulse, sort of like
Yep.
a tiny clap
Mm-hmm.
that we call a transient.
Mm-hmm.
And the vocal tract then responds by ringing at certain preferred frequencies, so to speak, which we call formants.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we have the ringing pattern of all the formants, because there are various different frequencies that will ring at the same time as a reaction to that
Yep.
pulse. And we call those timbron. And then the voice is actually created by chaining together many of those transients repeated at different rates for different pitches. And each of those transients triggers that vocal tract response, which forms those timbrons, and they interact with each other with the neighboring oscillations, which is what makes singing more or less difficult. So, if I hijack this a bit, I'd actually maybe even talk about how formants are created. So I think a lot of people who even know a little bit about vocal acoustics aren't necessarily sure how this thing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So let me actually share my screen for a bit.
Yep.
I need to request that from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So basically, this is from the presentation that I also did at CVI, Authorized Teachers Update.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, down here we have the glottis, so the vocal folds closing or opening. So here we have the open phase, and the
Okay.
air is flowing out. And then when the vocal folds close, they stop the flow.
Yeah.
But the air that has already moved past the vocal folds basically continues onward. It's sort of like, it passed
Yeah.
through the gates and it's like, I'm going that way.
It has
And
to do
doesn't.
with AC and DC airflow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So basically, as the air keeps going that direction,
Mm.
and the Newton thing, object in motion stays in
Yeah.
motion.
Yeah.
So air keeps going that way. Suddenly, that creates an area of low pressure right above the vocal folds.
Mm-hmm.
And that low pressure wave actually travels through the vocal tract until it reaches the mouth, so the end of the vocal tract.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting thing happens there. I remember first hearing it, like when the sound wave hits, or the pressure wave hits the end of the vocal tract, which is basically just the mouth opening, it reflects back. And I was like, wait, why? Like, that's not an obstacle. Why would it reflect back? Then I realized, okay, so what happens is that low pressure area reaches the higher pressure on the outside. So the atmospheric pressure, which is higher than that current low
Yep.
pressure front. And air wants to flow from areas of higher pressure to areas of lower pressure.
Like Bernoulli effect idea.
Yep. Yes. And then basically the air starts flowing in
Yeah.
response to that. And suddenly you have a higher pressure front that is traveling back,
Mm-hmm.
or actually air traveling back down. Once it hits the vocal folds again, they're still closed. So we are talking about one closing instant. This is happening hundreds of times per second. And
Yeah.
so all of this I'm talking about happens like extremely rapidly. So once that air rushing in reaches the vocal folds, that's an obstacle. So we have like a pileup of air molecules. So it reaches the vocal folds, they bump into them, the air behind doesn't know, it still keeps coming in, piles up,
Yep.
and we have an area of higher pressure. So a higher pressure front traveling, so as the air is still moving inwards,
Uh-huh.
traveling towards the mouth. Suddenly, the higher pressure front meets the atmospheric pressure, which is then lower.
Yeah, yeah, lower. Uh-huh.
And basically, what happens is air starts flowing out and the pressure starts dropping.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that reaches the vocal folds, we basically start again,
The cycle.
restart the cycle.
Yeah.
And then if we think about this, okay, what is this? What are these pressure fluctuations? What is sound? Sound is changes in air pressure over time, like rhythmical changes in air
Yeah.
pressure. So basically, what we're describing here is a creation of sound. It is
Okay.
a very short sound, but it is sound, and it has certain frequencies built in. So based on the vocal tract length and some other parameters, it the frequency, the speed at which this whole process happens changes. So basically, this is how formants are created. So this oscillation of air pressure in the vocal tract is a formant.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think it's not like super simplified, but again, these kind of vocal talks, they're cool, they're recorded, and you can, it's like reading a science paper. It's not like you're reading the paper, forget about it. You're coming back again, reestablishing the idea, rethinking. So try to watch this couple of times and try to understand. Like just stop, rewind,
Yep.
and think about it because it makes a huge difference, really, in a sound production, especially if you are
Yep.
straining or if you are going back and forth trying to find some info and like, okay, like try to expand your head. Okay, maybe no. Like try to expand your chest voice. That's not chest voice. That's bell. That's not bell. That's mixed. And you're like, what the hell is going on here? And you're just talking. So advice is try to find more scientific way of thinking rather than trying to put like some words on the things. They're all different, marking all or the same things or different, and you're just talking with this overthinking rather than just trying to understand how the voice works. That's why we're here, basically.
Yes. Yes. And of course, what we're currently talking about in this form isn't helpful yet. So it's at this point it's helping you to understand what is happening, but we can come to like, okay, how do we use that? But
Yeah.
so basically, I would, before even talking about how that affects voice use, just talking about that formant thing, I would say that the bigger the initial pressure drop is,
Mm-hmm.
the stronger the formant will be.
Correct. Yep.
And then also, the more rapid the pressure drop is, so the quicker the vocal folds close, and there's other parameters to that also, like the epilarynx size. So the narrower the epilarynx, that actually inhibits the flow above the vocal folds a little bit, which
Making
creates a higher pressure.
kinda, and you were talking about the backward reflecting ear
Yep.
pressure.
Yes.
Basically, we're talking about, this thing, semi-occluded phonation. You're doing all
Yes.
those things with lip bars, where like and stuff like that, and it's much easier. And basically, that's it. That what you're talking about right now. And about epilarynx, basically, the twang, or in my method, the
Yes.
crack, when you are narrowing the space right about the folds, you have this not only subglottic pressure but supraglottic pressure, which
Yes.
is giving the stable pressure underneath and above, which is helping to self isolation, which is really important. Talk about self isolation a bit and why it's really important for us.
What do you mean self-isolation? Sorry.
I mean, like the maximum
Oh,
pressure threshold should be not super high for like like super balanced type of phonation
Oh,
when
you
the
mean
flow phonation.
phonation threshold pressure?
Yes,
Oh yeah,
exactly.
yes, I get you now. Yes, so basically, more twang, more epilarynx narrowing helps us lower phonation threshold pressure, which means we need less pressure to start phonation.
Exactly.
But my point about the twang thing or the narrowing above the vocal folds is that it allows more pressure to build up while the air is still flowing,
Sure.
which then helps us create a more rapid drop and a bigger drop. And the more rapid the pressure drop is, the stronger the high frequency energy will be. So,
Yep.
which is interesting. I like to talk about how we like to think about frequencies as low or high. But if we think about it in the time domain, so like what is happening through time, higher frequencies are basically faster frequencies, more oscillations per second, higher or faster pressure changes through time.
Yeah.
So basically, the more rapid you make the pressure drop, the stronger the high frequency energy will be.
Yep. And it's really important to understand that this correlation, we are always talking not only with isolation idea like about formants, we are always talking about formants and harmonics correlation. And now we are getting more towards the idea what the formant is. Now, couple of words about harmonics. What are
Yes.
harmonics?
So looking at it from the transient theory of voice production, um, basically you get harmonics from periodic repetition of those vocal folds closing instants. But so actually, the way I like to go about it is almost talking about harmonics a little bit later, but let's scratch that surface.
Just a bit
So
for understanding,
yeah,
so you guys know what we are talking about here.
yes. So basically, when timbrons, which are a group of all formants together in one period, when they're repeated at a regular time interval, they create a pitch and a set of overtones, also known as harmonics. So basically, if there is strong energy, so basically a formant close to an integer multiple of the fundamental frequency that you're singing, that will create a strong
Yeah.
harmonic.
Sorry for
Um,
interruption. For you guys again, the idea when your brain defines the pitch, for example, like you have like like A4, like 440 hertz, and your brain basically, you said about fundamental frequency. What you
yes,
hear as a like this particular pitch, that's the fundamental frequency. You're
yes,
defining this 440 hertz as a fundamental frequency.
yes. And harmonics would be multiples of that frequencies. So to make it simple, if we have a frequency of 100 hertz, the harmonics would be all the multiples. So 200, 300, 400, even 100 actually is considered a
Yeah,
harmonic.
yeah, yeah.
So yes, but so the traditional way of thinking about this, so the source filter theory, would be that you have a set of harmonics first, and then the resonances amplify them.
Yep.
But if we take a look at it in the time domain, actually formants happen before harmonics. Because if you have a single vocal fold closing instant, it already creates that ringing pattern,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
before the vocal folds come together for the second time. So there's no pitch yet. There's no fundamental frequency and no
Okay.
harmonics.
But the format is already being
Yes.
created. Yep.
Yes. So actually, that's why I say I prefer the idea of transient theory of voice production, because it is more true to reality. So basically, you have a series of formants created, which, when repeated, actually build
Yeah,
harmonics.
yeah, right.
So, but to me, the whole thing, when we get to interference between adjacent pitch periods, that's where the whole thing starts to really matter, and you start seeing, oh, this is where this can make or break someone singing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And a couple of words about isolation, adduction, compression, call it whatever you want. That's really weird, but a lot of the times, usually singers who are not more into nerdy science thing, they're thinking like the adduction is basically this thing. And it's really important to understand that basically the isolation, that's the cycle. And that's why you can just like the squeeze, it's not a compression or adduction. So yeah, and that's why the frequencies are the waves because of the cycle. And again, super simplified, like the stronger the sound in terms of vibratory pattern here. When we're talking about maximum flow declination rate, or like okay, super simplified, the more the folds are coming together per cycle, basically the more the glottis is closed, the more the beefier, louder, stronger, powerful the sound is. The less they are going together per cycle, the lighter, softer, again, call it whatever you want. That's why the understanding of this thing
Yes,
rather than this thing is helpful in understanding what's going on after. Like you have
yes,
input, the sound source, and have the filter, and how you are filtering the sound after they are going through the source or like the vibrator. Then you can manipulate. And you said about a quarter wave resonator or Helmholtz resonator. Basically, it's a windpipe with one side closed. But in our case, that's really cool, and that's why it's much more difficult because it's so dynamic, and we can manipulate with all the articulators, like with the soft palate, a lot of position of the tongue,
yeah,
larynx, lips, and that's why the harmonics and frequencies in the correlation and all these couplings are changing. And the question is, or we can talk about this later, strategy. That's important. Before I need to create the sound, I need to understand what the sound should be. It's like, hello, what's going on? Or hello, what's going on? Like right before, not I'm trying to go like only for the pitch.
mm-hmm,
I'm going for the quality of the
yeah,
sound, for the specific vowel modification, not only like, so the primitive way of thinking, I'm gonna hit the note, I'm gonna create the pitch. The more advanced idea, that's why we're here. We're trying to put you into an idea, accept the pitch, what the sound color is gonna be, what the tone is gonna be, what the vowel shaping is gonna be, like a lot of things you are thinking about before you're creating the sound.
yeah, yes, absolutely.
Cool. All right. So the correlation, we have formants, we have harmonics, and we can, I think, hold on a second, I'm gonna check not to forget about something. Okay, couple. Yeah, let's talk about this coupling idea. Basically, it has to do with the idea I told before,
Yeah,
our strategy. So those like main strategies, we are calling that coupling. Basically, what the tone we gonna create. And let's talk about those super like advanced coupling.
yes. So the couplings, in my view, have all to do with constructive or destructive interference. So basically, it's like, and let me also share this just because it's
Share
easier for
everything you
me.
have, bro.
Yeah. So basically, if you imagine like ripples on water, and you have two ripples that meet at the bottom point and also meet at the high point. Basically, you get constructive interference. The wave goes higher at the high point, it goes lower at the low point. But the destructive interference happens when the high point of one ripple meets the low point of another, and they cancel each other out, making the water flat, basically. The same applies to voice acoustics. So, like, if at some point you have at the same point in space a wave of that has a high pressure front and a low pressure front, they cancel each other out.
Yep.
So, what happens, and it's especially relevant to high pitches. So this is a very interesting thing in my view, is constructive versus destructive interference in phonation. So how do the formants from two different periods interact with each other? So here, this thing, let me just clarify what I've done here. So I've just taken a single pulse, like I don't know if you can hear that. It's very small. Like
Can you do it again, please?
like
Yeah,
one
gotcha.
click.
For you guys, it's the kind of pulse register refers to a fry or creak, and call it whatever you want.
Yeah, but
Basically,
so not
only one. Yeah,
but
only
like just
like one from the. It's only like tick.
yeah,
Only one, basically.
exactly. So basically, this was me doing really close to a microphone, and this is the response of my vocal tract. So basically, you can see the full timbron of me doing that. Sorry, this one was that. So if I have constructive interference, so if at some point during this thing, I have another vocal fold closing event, and let's say so this is the new vocal fold closing event, and this high point aligns with this one.
Okay.
If we put them over each other, you see that we have nice constructive interference resulting in a bigger wave. So this wave here is a combination of these two.
Yeah.
So here you can see basically that it goes taller. There's more energy to it. So constructive interference means they actually get stronger. Destructive interference is the opposite. So in this bottom example, we have, again, the same actual shape, so it was the same sound wave, but now I've superimposed it to a slightly differently timed same sound wave that now that now has the high point line up, so the peak lined up with the trough down here. So, and you can see them superimposed over each other here, and then the result of that is actually this wave now doesn't go as high, nearly as high. We are getting destructive interference, and the sound wave is getting weaker.
Yep. Okay.
So this is especially relevant in higher pitches because the interference is stronger because the formants are still ringing at the start of the next period. So if I take a look at this one, you can see that it starts strong and then it sort of dies out.
Yep.
So if the next period started here, there's almost no energy to interfere with. So that would happen at very low pitches. And we do have this experience, like at low pitch, we can do almost any vocal tract shape. It doesn't make much of a difference.
That's why, sorry for interruption. That's why the idea about, again, formants and harmonics has to do, and the resonance itself with vowels. That it's like one thing idea, and that's why what you're saying right now. That's why it's easy to sing in a lower part. You're not thinking too much about vowel shaping. You can use speech like vowels. And that's the idea when you're working with coaches and they're like, okay, that's your limit. You can't sing higher because like that's your voice type. And like sing, it's easy. Here, like don't go higher because basically you're using speech like vowels. with speech-like vowels going higher than, let's say, mid part of the range, it's not going to work that way. So that's why you need to modify the vowels to reshape the vocal tract or reshape all the articulators. And that's why this idea is much better from, for example, if you need to go higher, I can
And
say,
also,
yeah,
if your vocal coach says this is your limit, you cannot sing higher because you're this voice type, find a different voice teacher.
yeah, that's a disclaimer, and that's true, especially nowadays. Maybe it works long time ago, but now we are not talking about something, like esoteric, because as you might notice, we have all those papers, and it's not like because I'm thinking it's happening that way. We have electroglottogram, all those strobos, and like we know for sure it works like that. Yeah, so you can trust us. Yeah, and about the vowels, for example, if you need to sing higher, you're straining, or the sound is becoming weak, or you are flipping, yodeling. So I can use one way of training you. For example, you need to have slightly higher palate, maybe slightly lower larynx position if you are going more towards operatic tone, or if you are trying to go more towards contemporary belt musical theater. I would probably go for slightly lower palate, more raised larynx, more horizontal mimic position and embouchure. And it's like that's the package of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 6 or 7 different things, and it should be done in a one time. But if I'm gonna tell you, think more about diphthong a, like a diphthong, like the a vowel, like super open vowel, and only thinking about that vowel, it pulling the palate slightly lower, it raising the larynx a bit, like all those articulators are going into position because you're thinking only about one thing, like modifying the vowel into a, and you're reshaping the vocal tract.
Exactly. And basically reshaping it, trying to get more constructive interference
Exactly.
instead of destructive. So constructive interference makes singing easier and stronger, while destructive interference makes it harder and weaker.
Yes, but that's a really interesting thing. So we know there's like science behind the voice production, and from the one hand, for clean singing and like really strong clean singing, we are using that, and we are trying to boost or amplify. But again, we're gonna use kind of the same idea with this kind of destructive approach. For example, detuning the vowel, if you need, for example, basically to make the isolation in a proper way in the upper part, you need to shape the vocal tract for a specific format matching the specific harmonic, right? But if you're gonna and use for that, for example, a vowel, if you're gonna go from a vowel, not fully cover into a, but slightly cover from a to a, and you're going more towards destructive way, like you were described.
It depends. So
Yeah.
I would say you can find different ways of making constructive interference. So there's not just one way of doing it. So I would say that most of the time our goal is to make more constructive interference, but there's many different paths that we can go about that.
Yeah, and I was talking about how to go from a fast isolation, which is clean singing, and how we can put a tonality to the sound, going from fast, clean, towards creaking, pulse, fry, again, call it whatever you want. And that is giving you the, basically, more a tonal sound versus tonal sound. And when, again, most of the, like, I think most popular question, why my voice breaks. For example, yay, when I'm belly, yay, it should be done like that. But if it's yay, Okay. So what I did, rather than maintaining front open valve the higher I go, and again we're going more towards the again coupling rather than raising the tongue a bit,
Mm-hmm.
like F2 formant, F2 and H3 coupling. We're gonna talk slightly later about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beginning to cover just a bit, which is giving which is going from super stable sound to a more unstable, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how we are screaming and going more towards extreme phonation.
Mm-hmm.
We are learning how use non-stable vocal tract shaping, which is giving non-stable sound
Mm-hmm.
in a stable control way. So again, formants and harmonics are really important, not only for clean singing, beautiful singing, operatic singing, belting, stuff like that. But if you are into a extreme or rough vocal effects, you are nerding about different sound effects, not only in singing, maybe you're a voice actor and you need to like dub in something. Again, that's it's going to be a huge breakthrough if you're going to think about formants and harmonics. Continue, please.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course, because they will also create different vowels and sound colors. And I would argue that in atonal screaming, it will actually give you what people call like a high scream or a low scream.
Mm-hmm.
Will have a lot to do with formants
Yeah.
because there's no pitch to it per se. But
Mm-hmm.
then if you make a dark sound, so something that is closer to, let's say, an oo, which
Mm-hmm.
has low first and second formants, then that is gonna sound like a low scream, whereas an
For sure.
ah is gonna sound like a higher scream because it's got a
Right. That's
yeah.
why you're hearing about this again simplified. For the low screams, you need to go into for the mid, you go into ah, for the super high, you go into ah because of the vocal tract shaping.
Mm,
Basically, the smaller the vocal tract, the higher the frequencies. The length is more and wider, the lower the frequencies. That's why
yes.
this quarter wave resonator is dynamic. So you can make it smaller or narrowed. You can make it bigger or wider.
Mm. And the
Uh,
thing is, if we're talking about the second or higher resonances, actually narrowing at different points can actually lower the second formant.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. We were starting to talk about coupling. Let's cover
Yep.
all those F1H2,
Yes.
H2, F2H3, F1H1.
Yes. So basically, just to round out the thing about the constructive and destructive interference, because that
Yep,
is what
yep.
when we're talking about couplings, we are talking about specific ways to get constructive interference.
Yes.
So I like to say, imagine a kid on a swing. So he's swinging, and you push that swing, and it matters at what point you push it. So if you push it like at the peak return point, you will get a nice high and easy swing. You're having constructive interference. Whereas if you push a swing while it's still returning, you will
Yes.
actually be fighting the swing. You will have destructive interference and it will not go far.
Like a bicycle, riding a fixed gear with a fixed thing. If you're gonna
Mhm.
go uphill, you need to like swing rather than you're gonna stop a bit and then a lot of you need to like push a lot harder, much more, straining rather than just maintaining the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You mean it's easier to keep the speed than if you stop and then
Yep.
restart?
Yep.
Oh yeah, yes, yes. So okay, couplings. So if we talk about common constructive interference acoustic couplings, uh, the one I already mentioned is the F1H2, which basically means F1 means first formant, lowest resonant frequency of the vocal tract. H2 means second harmonic. So basically, it means that that formant is tuned an octave above the pitch that you're singing, so 2 times the frequency.
Yep.
It basically means that there's 2 oscillations of that formant per cycle,
Yes.
uh, and it reinforces itself. So we have continued ringing energy at that frequency. So that F1H2 is also called yell coupling or yell timbre, because that's what we quite commonly do when we go like, "Hey!" Calling out to someone in the
Exactly.
distance or whatever. We will usually do that. So you can see it on a spectrogram. So
And
let me.
sorry for interruption. Again, a couple
Mhm.
of words. And except that what you were saying, the same common terms, open timbre, if you're reading some
Yeah.
papers or literature. And
But I
basically,
would say that yell is a special case of open, because
yeah,
open
yeah,
is whenever F1 is above H2,
yes,
that
yes,
is
yes,
all of that is open. But
yes,
then yell or F1H2 is a specific case of open.
yeah,
Yes.
and basically, if you're searching for a belting specifically, that's what we're talking about right now.
Yes.
Show me the thing.
Yes. So basically let's look at, and we can listen to some yell coupling as well. So there is one example here which is not yell coupling, and I included it specifically to show. So basically, this is the spectrogram. This here, this axis is time. Then this here is frequencies. And then how bright the color is gives us the strength at that particular frequency.
Yep.
And basically, we are looking at this thing. So the lowest one is the first harmonic, second harmonic, third harmonic, and so on. What we are
Sorry for
seeing.
interruption. Again, for those who are not familiar with this thing, basically, if you gonna record your, let's say, sound, and you're gonna open this sound in a spectrogram, you're not gonna see only one. You're gonna see that. You're gonna see
Yes.
fundamental frequency and all the harmonics above.
Yes, basically, this is just one note, and we will
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
listen
Yeah.
to this particular picture in a second.
Yeah, that's only one pitch. Like your brain is defined as a pitch.
Yes. So at this point, so I think this was O, E vowels, then E. This one was, I think, A,
Mm-hmm.
which has a higher first formant, and you can even catch a glimpse of it here.
Yes.
So it's sitting around here. And
Mm-hmm.
later I do the same pitch, same vowel, but at a higher pitch, and then we suddenly see this strong second harmonic.
Yes.
So basically, and at the end, there's like a major scale up to an octave, and you can
Mm-hmm.
see that that second harmonic is staying strong throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So let me play it.
Let's
So
do
it
it.
sounds like this. Whoa! Eh! Ah! Eh! Ah! Eh!
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
Cool.
basically, in that hey, you can see that that is getting tracked actually. And I'd
Cool.
also like to talk about how we can achieve that. So if we're talking about, so did you want to interject
Just yeah,
something?
quick interruption again, because it's really important and not to forget anything. You said about tracking, and guys, remember this thing because when you are familiar with what tracking is, it's going to be even much easier. So you're not going to be thinking only about the vowel, but the sound quality you're tracking. That's one thing. And another thing about we're talking about the yell tone, shout tone, and you need to understand that even in operatic singing, they're still using open timbre and this coupling, but actual yell you are searching for, which is contemporary musical theater rock tone, it's
Gospel as
because
well.
yeah, it's happening after certain let's say again, really in a simple way, after certain pitch. So if you are using this, let's say, yell tone, for example, again, let's simplify, below the first bridge, like for the tenor voice, for example, E flat, E, F, F sharp 4, it's not gonna be a like someone is yelling. It's a tone, yay, kind of like this. But after, if I'm, that what you were saying, tracking, if I'm not gonna change from that sound quality by covering the vowels or make the vowels more darker, going from F1, H2 into kinda F2, H1, if I'm gonna track the same F1, H2, that's when you have the yeah right here. That's the yell is happening. Yay, yay, yay! Only here.
Yes.
Like not before. That's why this tracking is so important for us.
And I would like to add just, because it's called yell and there's a lot of stigma around like singing
Yeah.
is not yelling. I mean, it is very often used in singing. And the example I like to use is, for example, Tears of the Dragon from Bruce Dickinson, where
Yeah.
he does specific vowel modifications to stay in yell coupling
Exactly.
for where he sings like I throw myself into the sea. He sings into the sea. He doesn't
Exactly.
sing into the sea. Of course, he could do that, but into is already weaker than going for that
Less.
into.
And that's
So
when we are talking about acoustical energy. When we are boosting, we are not talking here like it's not a proper or that's only correct.
yeah,
We're talking
yes,
about different sound ideas or strategy. You can create different sounds.
different
And
options.
exactly. And different vowels are putting you into a different coupling, which are different sound qualities.
Yes,
Henta versus hentu. It's completely different tone. Both are cool, but the key question
is
is
context.
exactly.
Yeah.
Continue, please. Yeah.
Yes. So, just the thing that people very often see this picture when talking about couplings, and so we often look at spectrograms.
Yeah.
However, I'd like to point one thing out. We can actually see the coupling even in the waveform of the audio. So the thing you can see like in your DAW when you record and stuff like that. So if we look for repeating patterns that make the pitch, this thing here is one repeating pattern. So then you can see the same repeating pattern happen again and again and again. Look for this. So there's actually like two peaks in that one cycle. And that is really interesting because that is two oscillations per cycle. That's the second harmonic.
Yes.
So the formant is actually drawing out that second harmonic that we can see
Yep.
in there. So yes, that's the F1H2 coupling. And so basically, if we want to keep that coupling, the higher we go, we need to raise the first formant the higher we go to track the
Yes.
pitch. So how do we do that? So F1 is mostly controlled by several things. Mouth shape, so more smiling,
Yep.
jaw opening, and an interesting thing is you can hear it if I like tap above my larynx while keeping the vocal folds closed. So if I smile now,
Exactly.
that raises.
Yeah. The
Then
same with
yeah, same thing.
yeah.
Same thing. Yes. Then jaw opening, the same effect. So that also raises. Then larynx height. So raising the larynx or lowering the larynx. Raising the larynx will raise it. So if I start,
Yes.
that
And
also
the
raises
palate,
it.
the soft palate also.
the soft palate, I would say, has more influence on the second formant than the first one,
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
because of its location. But twang is another thing. So twanging can also raise the first formant. So basically, when going for this yell timbre sound, if we think about vowels, as you correctly pointed out, like, okay, if we want to keep the high first formant, we would go for what people call open vowels, which are actually vowels with high first formant,
Exactly.
like
Yeah,
things that you can produce with a very open mouth. Unlike so-called closed vowels like oo or e that typically have a very low first formant. So if I set my vocal tract up, let's say for an oo, and then compared to an ah,
exactly. And
that's a
basically,
higher.
and again, guys, so the idea is we're talking about raising or lowering the formant. In this case, you have first formant, which is giving you this yell character. So if you are, again, like if we were talking about the first bridge, like E flat, E, F, F sharp, if you are raising the first formant about this, let's say, passaggio area, and you are tracking the second harmonic, which is the bright harmonic, you are maintaining the yell tone higher. So you're raising the first formant. Completely another strategy is to lower the second formant, which is, like you said, the more closed vowels, oo's and e's. For example, if I go ah, you hear the sound quality. If I go ooh, e, it's already have like lower second formant, even in this, let's say, low
Oh, you mean
pitch.
first formant or lower energy on the second harmonic?
Lower the energy on the second harmonic and lower
Oh, okay.
the second formant
Because
lower.
an e will actually have a high second formant.
Ooh, I mean ooh,
Oh, ooh, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. Okay, got you.
yeah,
Gotcha.
and that's what in more operatic approach is happening basically. So you are kind of lower. That's why you're going from a to kind of covering yeah, basically the idea. So you are lowering the second formant to avoid basically yelling in operatic style about the first passaggio. Like to make really like long story short.
Yes, and not tracking the yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yes, so to talk about a different coupling strategy, let's talk about the so-called F1H1 or whoop coupling or whoop
Yes.
timbre. So this one is again a first formant coupling strategy.
With a strong fundamental also.
Yes. So that's where we tune that lowest resonance of the vocal tract to the pitch that we are singing. So exactly to the pitch, not one octave up.
Yeah, and please let's do, because you know what you're talking about. I know, but for guys, when you're talking about specific coupling, like demonstrate immediately so they're like guys are matching. For example, yay, like F1H1. If you're like F1H1, so you're no specific sound, which is this coupling.
Exactly. Yes. So quite commonly we will hear F1H1 in falsetto, and the reason it's called whoop coupling is that when we go like woo woo, we will usually be in that coupling.
Yeah,
It's very common in female opera singing,
for sure.
so that's how they make it very efficient. So let me also show you that on a spectrogram. So again, here we have different sounds. So now we see a strong energy in this fundamental. So this is red, and here it's tracking that red.
Yep.
Interestingly, there's also a strong second harmonic on this. It's an oo vowel.
Okay.
So here I have like a double coupling. I have F1H1 and F2H2. We'll talk about F2 couplings later
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
On an E vowel, we see a much higher second formant. So
Yes.
this here is a little bit more red. But anyway, let's hear this. So, woo! Yes. So it
Yeah.
has that wee kind of sound.
Yeah, it's super operatic if you will go for kind of, and basically that's what we are doing. Again, now we're talking about not sympathetic vibration, idea, chest voice, head voice, but we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about this also because it resonates with you guys. But we are talking more about vibratory pattern concept, M0, which is fry creaking, M1, let's say chest dominant tone, a M2, let's say head dominant tone, M3 flageolet whistle. But when you're working on your head voice, falsetto, upper resonance, usually that's why these vowels, E, which is like front closed, and OO, is giving you this F1H1,
Yeah.
which is
And why
your.
they are easier.
Yes.
So they people will often find that ee and woo are really easy in falsetto
Yeah.
because of this coupling. So, and just because we're talking about transient theory of voice production, if we then look at what it looks like in the time domain, so now every oscillation looks very similar. That's because there's just one cycle. So I have one cycle. So the formant does one cycle during one
Exactly.
vibratory cycle.
Comparing
So
to remember with second harmonic, it was tiny two peaks.
yes, yes. So
Yeah.
we had two peaks. I can go back to that one. Wait.
Yeah, let's do it for the guys.
So yes, this one was the F1H2. We could see that these two guys repeat all the time. And now here we have just one repeating over
Yeah.
and over again. So yes, so that's the F1H1 coupling.
And again, sorry for interruption. And basically, when we're talking about like real singing, usually we are going from one coupling to another or from one mode to another, and basically going from F1H2, which is yay belt or open, into F1H1. That's your intentional vocal break. No matter, kinda.
Yeah,
And that's why you can use
yes.
E or U when you are kinda trying to be like with a lot of energy, loud, and you're closing the valve.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're E.
Yeah, and so the example that came to my mind the moment you mentioned that was like Whitney Houston, and with that like,
Yeah.
and that's a like F1H2,
Yes.
and then always love you.
Yeah. And
So
about different singers who are using those couplings, I think F1H2 a bunch. You name it. Like Bruce Dickinson, Armin, all the heavy metal, hard rock singers, musical theater, every single musical theater, I think, going there.
although talking about Dickinson, I would say that higher up he switches to a different strategy.
Yeah, I mean
So-
in the high mid part of the voice usually.
yeah,
Mid
yeah,
part
yeah,
and
yeah.
high mid part of the voice. We're gonna
Yes.
talk about slightly later going from F1H2 to kind of remain with the same idea. We're gonna go into F2H3. So that's the preparation. If you are into F1H2, that's the preparation for a F2H3 kind of. For whoop tone, F1H1. Matthew Ballybeam from Muse doing a lot of this thing. Connor Mason from Nothing But Thieves. Yes. Who else really
Darkness. So
yes, Prince. Who else really, really big?
well,
Justin Timberlake, The Weeknd, Michael Jackson. A lot of the times he's super like diverse guy. Yeah, exactly. Jeff Buckley, really good. Again, like a huge diversity, but a lot of the times also really cool F1H1 coupling.
yes, yes. So yeah, you mentioned F2H3, but I would say there's more F2 resonance strategies. So the second formant is the next resonant frequency up. And we often resort to that in closed timbre, where the first formant, so F1, is not close to any of the harmonics. So it's sort of when you're in between the F1H2 and F1H1, so between the yell and the whoop. And this particular coupling will be even more sensitive to specific vowels and specific pitches. So it's often done in what CVT calls curbing or other reduced density modes, or what other it can also be done in fuller density edge, but or what other methods commonly refer to like the mixed voice.
Chest dominant,
Usually,
usually mixed voice.
yeah, but I think F2 resonance strategies can there's like various different sounds that you can make with those as well.
And again,
So
little disclaimer, when you're talking about CVT curbing, or in my method, it's really, really similar to a medium mode, held back, really cry,
yep,
sobby, but strong tone. I'm not a kind of like, it's not
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's more kind of like held back. Demonstrate a couple of lines just
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make it clear.
So, sort of, the line I usually go to is like, "Another long summer's come and gone." It's kind of got that held back character. It's not a "Another long summer comes and gone." That would be like more of the yell coupling,
Yeah, and the
and
idea
that.
is the sound is fully out. Or
Mhm.
you could kind of beginning to like not to be frustrated. The sound output should be still there. Not good to like usually that what is happening when you're trying to find this held back. Like you are overholding.
Oh
So
yeah,
the sound is still going out. The acoustical
yeah, yeah.
energy is going out. But the idea about kind of holding back a bit, working. So that's curbing CVT or medium in my method. That's what you're talking about.
Yes. So the F2H3 that you mentioned is often heard in like male operatic singing in the high part. They also often call it the Pavarotti coupling. Although I would argue that there's more to the Pavarotti sound than just that coupling, which I will also show with the spectrogram in a minute. It also depends on the pitch. So at some pitches, that won't sound as operatic, but also you will hear my recording of the F2H3 coupling that I labeled Pavarotti from Temu. It's like Temurati.
Ah,
And you will see that there's more to that specific sound than just
mm-hmm.
the F2H3 coupling. So yeah, basically these are various different F2 couplings. So in all of these, the first formant is sitting somewhere in between. In this one, we can actually even see traces of it like between the harmonics.
Yep.
Uh, so the first one is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is an
Mm-hmm.
F2H6 coupling. Then we have
Okay.
an F2H4. Then this is an F2H3,
H3.
which
Yeah.
sounds very non-operatic at this pitch. And then a higher pitch where it sounds a bit more operatic, but I'm not an opera singer, so it doesn't sound. So that's the Temu version of Pavarotti, and then an F2H4 at a very high pitch.
Okay.
So let's
Let's hear it.
listen to it a bit. So first F2H6. Hey, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So various different sounds. And as you can hear, that one probably wouldn't pass an opera audition.
For the super bright sound color comparing to the much darker.
Yeah, but it is a F2H3.
Yeah, but you can see it. So
Yeah.
depending on the spectrogram, yeah, it is.
Yes. So if we take a look at the first one here again, we can actually see these things on the waveform as well.
Yeah.
So this is the first segment of this, which had the F2H6 coupling, and you can actually identify. So this first one has this little crown
Yes.
on. So that's the repeating pattern. Every time that happens, that's like the first oscillation of that second formant. So you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So
Yeah.
F2H6
Comparing to
coupling.
F1H1, we had only one, and
Yeah.
F1H2, we had two picks.
And it's funny because you can actually see the first formant in this one as well, even though it doesn't contribute to a constructive interference, doesn't have a strong coupling. But you
Yeah.
can see that these things are sort of being lifted up and down. So that's actually the second formant is sort of like a faster oscillation riding on a slower oscillation.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
like this slow oscillation is the first formant, and then you have a quicker oscillation,
Which
but
is
the,
the
the
second.
slower oscillation actually modulates the
Yeah.
quicker one. So that's why you see these things going up and down.
Cool.
So if we talk about, okay, how we can control that second formant, because we
Hold on
talked
a
about,
second. About
yep,
the first formant, about the tools, like literally, if you're thinking about, okay, first formant, you were saying about raising the first formant or lowering the first formant. The first formant, like I said, it has to do with the basically like when the jaw is dropping, the more the space within
yep,
the mouth cavity.
yep,
So that's why when we are tracking the second harmonic
yes,
in matching the first formant, that's why we are like we are opening,
yes,
opening.
yes.
So that's the
I
first
think we
form.
mentioned so mouth shape, jaw opening,
Yeah,
larynx height, twang, and it's funny. There's a paper from, or not funny, but an interesting fact from Tietze and others from 2011. Something about belting. I don't remember the actual name of the paper, but it says that basically quotes larynx raising, pharynx narrowing, jaw lowering, and lip spreading to use together to raise the first formant.
yes.
Yes.
About the second formant has to do with the tongue placement a lot of the time.
Yes. Yes. Basically,
From back
how.
to front idea.
Absolutely.
Continue,
Yes.
please.
So the second formant is, as you say, control. But here's the interesting thing: it's controlled by all of the F1 places. So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you raise the first formant, that's gonna somewhat affect the second formant as
for
well.
sure. Correct.
But if you want to decouple that, so if you want to control the second formant without detuning the first formant, tongue position. So fronting versus backing the tongue.
Exactly.
So vowels that have a high second formant have a hump of the tongue that is further forward, like E.
Yeah.
E, you can basically, it touches E, your teeth here in the front. Whereas back vowels or low F2 vowels,
Kinda.
oo especially,
Yeah.
has the oo very far back, the hump of the tongue. So the highest point of the tongue is very far in the back.
That's when operatic, kind of we are trying to go into rather than for the brighter like when we're
Yeah.
putting the hump of the tongue slightly more forward. And again, slightly off top, but let's talk about this really fast. The problem with medium mode or curbing, usually when you are ascent with it, in a low mid part, sounds cool, kind of like that. And if you're struggling, like you're beginning, like straining, going higher, usually when the tongue is super low, to be like that, really, dopey, rather than like simple trick, just raise the tongue, and you have this like usually brighter sound color, which is really cool in curbing and medium mode, kind of like that. You have this,
Yes.
and which is basically putting the sound again placement so sympathetic vibration idea, but you will feel this shift from back to front going in pitch higher from like going here, which is giving you the feeling of release, like you're not overholding, you kind of have held back quality with output of the sound itself.
Yeah. So I think talking about that, that's a really interesting one, especially the way you show it. Sort of, to me, seems to imply a bit more nasal stuff, which is actually really cool in closed timbre, which is not whoop yet, because opening the nasal passage will de-emphasize the destructive interference of the first
For sure,
formant,
yes.
and that's why on those closed vowels it can actually help open the nasal passage. So
For
if I
is
have,
and
I don't
oo's.
know, let's say something like an oh that I'm finding really difficult, then
Yeah.
opening the nasal passage a bit, oh, will oftentimes make it easier for people.
And more with the release, and that's the really funny story. And in other words, that's our resonance strategy. For example, if you need to go for a yell tone, belting, shout, call, that's why we are like there is no E. Now go from me to you. There is no
Exactly.
E or U. But if you need this speech like radio sound with E, probably like two other scenarios is going to be, or you're going to cover into a for me, for you, kind of into so that's it's also not ese speech like,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're going to open the nasal passage, he to you have crystal clear almost speech like e and u. And I think, remember, we were talking about speech-like approach, mixed voice, SLS, blah blah blah. That's why this they're calling this pharyngeal, but I think it's more towards nasal pharynx activation when you're opening the nasal
Mm-hmm.
port, and that's why these e's and oo's are much simpler with e and oo. And
Yep.
another really short story. I clearly remember I was coaching one girl. She was 12 years old. She was like, her mom called me and she said, we have only like 2 weeks. She's on The Voice of Ukraine, and she's a more like a jazz singer, but she needs to sing a rock heavy song with a grid, because her opposite vocalist were girl who were like screaming her lungs out, and comparing to that girl, she was kind of sing like that. So we had only 2 weeks. We did it like belt plus vestibular folds grid. However, I was warming
That's
up
awesome.
her. Yeah, and I was I will send you the video. It was amazing, really. I was shocked, actually. I was shocked because from super F1H1 to a F1H2 with the grid, with the like narrowed and constricted here, which is not proper for jazzy pop, really like this
Yeah.
lounge sound. However, I was warming up her, and I heard some of the vocal coaches were warming up the guy on eval,
Mm.
ESE,
Yeah, yeah.
ascending in pitch with closed nasal port, and it was it and then it and then, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh my. Like it was, I was straining only by hearing that, and I was like,
Yeah.
what's the matter? Or open the nasal port, or open the valve, or cover the valve and make it darker. Why you're staying with speech like E going higher? So
I
it
have a trick for that. But can you maybe pause for a second? I really need to go to the toilet, and
for
then we
sure.
can.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
can
I'll be
do.
back in a minute.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Yes,
cool.
the E vowel. So there's a specific trick, and that's a vowel that I've been struggling for a long time. And there's, of course, there are people who use that vowel in the higher range without going to an
Yeah.
So this trick was inspired by Ken Bozeman, actually, even though he uses it slightly differently, more in the opera approach. But one thing I found interesting was if you open your mouth a lot and keep it open, and then try to whisper an E. So,
The hump of the tongue is gonna go.
yes. And also, I actually, so now I'm going to say something that I haven't yet actually tested, but I'm imagining it might actually raise the first formant a bit and help it go beyond the point of destructive interference. And there's something about the F2 coupling as well. So that sort of can really be helpful for getting an E higher up that sounds a bit stronger.
And yeah, again, if you are a fan of CVT approach and my method, when we're talking about belting, there are a couple of different, kind of the same but different. In CVT, that's overdrive versus edge. In mine, that's heavy versus hard mode. So to go higher, specifically for the male voices, like the second bridge, A4, B flat, B high tenor, CC5, and higher, you're going from like really open vowels into a bit narrowed, and this don't go from me, going to from me. So that it's not from me, but it's not from me. It's not medium from me. It's totally different. So in between of me and held back on me, there's still shout call sharp much narrowed, much raised tongue, which is second formant activation. Yes. And yeah, so that's really cool. And when you show me more bitey smiley, that's the first thing what came out into my mind for more shouty belty
Yep. Yes. Cool. And
don't forget, and let's back to the spectrogram, because we're talking about F1H6, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about. So it was 2, except that it was the next coupling was
F2H4. But I mean, you could have any coupling.
Okay.
Any coupling will make things more efficient.
In this case, I think we can go more towards F2H1, probably where you should go if you are into operatic approach, into opera, into this like more darker sound color, I guess.
Sorry, F2
H1.
H1. So the second formant, the first
with the
harmonic.
first harmonic, yeah.
But that would be like then on crazy high pitches, like
yeah. Like
okay. So like for sopranos doing F6s and okay.
Like flageolet area going.
Oh yeah. Okay, I got you now. I wasn't.
Yeah.
Didn't realize we were there. Yeah,
because that's for the male voices. I'm a huge fan of like Ivan Mihaljevic, for example.
Oh
like
yeah.
Mark Slaughter and the guys who are like Tony Hernell, for example, like F5, G5, G sharp, A5.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I would say that in those cases they do the pseudo yell.
Yeah.
Where it's sort of like F1 and H2 clustering around the second harmonic.
Okay.
So the stuff like, I don't know, yay! That kind of thing, which can still sound sort of similar to like the thing that I have down here, and then it's like, I don't know, if I go and exactly. it sort of keeps some of the similar color.
And yeah, and that's why we were talking about, again, in CVT, going from overdrive to edge. If you are more towards these guys, probably you should go from like open vowels to a more narrowed, which like the tone is going to be really similar, but you should narrow for sure to go higher in pitch to ascend.
Yes.
Yeah, and for those who are singing, for example, guys who are singing Demi Lovato, for example, the same thing, like, yay! Like going there, it definitely is that, yay! It's completely different sound, which is not the same voice going there! Like, you have the same sound quality, which is kind of different mechanism. We're always talking about going from M1 to M2, and a lot of the times this misconception is stopping you guys from like exploring and discovering your voices, because when you're fixing on like, okay, I'm a belter M1 and I'm gonna push this M1 going higher, and that's the only way I'll be like really powerful. Like for example, those guys like I know like 20 Hernell, like no, he's usually going hard, and it sounds the same, but like you need to thin out 100% to go higher. Because in other words, it's the same as when you're driving a car, staying at the first gear with like 10,000 RPMs. It's not gonna work.
And again, I would say it's context dependent. So of course, if you're trying to go to a G5, then yes, you probably need to thin out. But I find that oftentimes there are methods who will like instruct you to thin out more to go to a G4, and that will, create a sound that is not maybe your favorite
Yes.
rock singer.
And that's why,
So
yeah,
it's context.
yes.
Context
And those,
matters.
again, resonance strategies, basically, in my opinion, a really cool way to think about the range is like low, mid, high. Basically, mid part of the voice, that's the area where you can be so different. You can pull your head voice down. You can use falsetto or slightly, again, like F1 H1 coupling. You can sounds even lower like this. It's gonna be like that. You can use if you're searching for a balanced tone, which is again chest dominant, but you're not yelling CVT curbing or medium mode, kind of like this. It's kind of straight. It's not kind of like this. You're not doing something like that. You can kind of like that. You can belt and open in this. So in this middle part of the range, like E flat 4 for the most tenor guys type voices, to B flat, I guess, B4, and even high C, let it be C5. Usually, if you are into a powerful sound, it's better to stay with open, like practice this. Don't be afraid to go with the yell tone, but remember what you need to do for that. There are a couple of circumstances should be done, like larynx should be too low, but again, it shouldn't be too high. And I remember after our vocal talk, I was riding my bicycle between the classes, and I saw your with Aaron Perry about belting next week. Highly recommend, really cool tricks and ideas and advices.
Yes, I didn't say that in the beginning. So I have a YouTube channel with my good friend Aaron Perry, Rockvox.
Guys, check them out. They're like, again, if you're following with me and you like my ideas, like check these guys out. They're really
you.
good. And I hope maybe in the future we'll do like with you and with Aaron something like nerding
Would love
about
to.
some vocal thing. So yeah, and you've mentioned a bit of like spoiler alert. You've mentioned about when usually when we're thinking about F1 H2 or belting or yell, usually raise the larynx, raise the larynx, raise the larynx. And when you're trying to raise the larynx as much as you can, the trouble come in, and
Yeah,
you're straining, overstraining. You're not powerful. A lot of the times you're ending up
it
sounds really weak.
depends on the pitch range, of course. So, but yeah, if you overshoot the F1H2 thing, it can again get weaker.
And basically, let's think about Earth, Wind, and Fire tone. Oh, say do you remember? Super high larynx. And I think if you're gonna raise larynx that high, you're not gonna stay like this sound. You'll be more like somewhere even like that. Like super high larynx with more. If you're searching for an effect, kind of like this. Okay, that would be cool. But if you're searching for a really powerful, let's say chest like tone, balance the larynx. Should be raised, but not extremely high. Not extremely high.
And it's hard to say what is like where the boundary is. So I think it depends basically on what coupling you get and how you get
Yeah.
there, because there's various ways to get the same coupling, and they will sound different. So,
Yeah.
like, let's say if I want to sing this note, which is still easy for various options, I can go for more jaw opening.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, hey, and remain quite dark. Hey, whereas and still have the yell coupling. But I could also have a very small mouth opening and then rely more on raising the larynx. Hey, it's still open timbre.
Yeah,
So it's you can do these things various different ways.
for sure.
So of course both are kind of extreme, and I would probably go into neither extreme for my own
Mm-hmm.
singing. I wouldn't do the hey, and if I wanted to have the yell coupling F1H2, I wouldn't probably also wouldn't go for an sorry, that wasn't F1H2. Hey, so I wouldn't go for that one either. I'd probably go for something like
In between.
hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super more neutral, not the mode neutral. I mean the configuration more neutral compared to those. And hold on a second. Had this on my mind about yeah, it's really weird when someone is trying to belt or use F1H2 with like really low larynx, and it's giving you like lower false contact, and you're ending up it feels like a yell but super breathy. Like again, it's really fake. But however, again, depending on the pitch, that's a really important topic. You can use it, and a lot of the time singers are using it who are not singing higher than like G sharp, G
And I would say that
4.
even extreme larynx phrasing, like if you want to get a yell coupling on a D5 as a guy,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know, as a girl, an F5 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, then at some point, if I want to do
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, and still have yeah open timbre, my larynx is probably gonna need to go as high as it can.
Yeah, for
Or
sure.
yeah.
And we're gonna, I think,
So context is everything when we talk about these
yeah,
things.
and we're gonna talk slightly. I hope you have a bit of the time.
Yep, sure.
Oh, that's cool, amazing. What we're talking about right now has to do with nonlinear effect also. So the vocal folds are doing something while you're not thinking about, okay, how I'm gonna compress them or what vibratory mechanism I'm gonna do, but thinking about what the coupling is gonna be or what the tone or basically the resonance strategy is gonna tell what is gonna happen here. But I think we're gonna talk about this after. Let's cover. So we were
Yeah,
talking about first
which also
formant
has to do with constructive and destructive interference.
for sure, because the vibe, like the cycle, the vibratory
Yeah.
thing. We were talking about first formant, which is basically you've got the idea: the mouth opening, like increasing the space within the oral cavity, spreading more like bitey smiley, raising the first formant. Larynx position also. That's why when we're tracking the second harmonic in the first formant, in a ballad, larynx should be like higher than in opera. The second formant, the tongue is most of the important thing, like from back to front. And oh, that's the thing about front back. That's really interesting thing. Again, it's more about sympathetic vibration, but I think it's helpful. Interesting thing is when you are thinking about lower higher in terms of pitch, the cool thing is to think from low to high, especially when you are thinking more towards F1H2, going from low to high. That's why you're not talking too much. You have this idea of going through. However, I do feel some mirroring effect with the response of the resonance. So it for me it feels like, let's call it like the placement. The higher I'm singing with this idea, it feels like when I'm chewing the gum and I'm putting it more far. Yeah. However, at the same time, I feel the resonance going more far back towards the head. So I really feel this kind of idea. So I'm placing more forward, but I'm allowing the resonance go much deeper like that. And usually what I found why is helpful, because we were talking about this, guys, like someone is like, ooh, here, close phallus, F1H1, I feel it here, cool. Someone is like, no, I don't feel nothing here, now the end is near, kind of Sinatra sound. Nothing is happening here. However, going from in CVT, from overdrive, really open valve, really yell character, into more narrowed edge, more raised tongue position, more towards closed valves, a lot of the times you are stuck in there when you are not allowing this idea of letting the resonance go through like soft palate root of the tongue right here space. And when you're using, for example, not a but it's working really cool, but after A B flat and high C, if you're opening the nasal port, it's like yes, for sure. But if you're yay right here, yay, you're done. But when you're thinking kind of the same vowel, with the placement going more front, but allowing the resonance go there, so you're probably opening the palate just a bit. I'm not talking about raising kind of like this stupid sound, but just a bit. And at that point you go, yeah, and you have this kind of release going higher. What do you think about it? Maybe you have experienced something similar, or no?
Personally, I've never really responded very well to the ideas of placement, just me personally. However, there's a very interesting paper, also published in Journal of Voice back in 2002. It's called "Where is a Singer's Voice if it's placed forward" by Vorma and Ross. And interestingly, they found a very high correlation between what people talk about as forward placement and tongue position. So basically, more forward tongue position seems to be related to the forward feeling. So basically, higher F2, higher second formant usually seems to be what people experience as more forward, which is interesting. So, of course, we are talking about correlation between something measurable and something that is a sensation people feel. And when talking about sensations, different people might feel things differently.
Yeah, I agree.
And so the correlation is not 100% because people might hang on to a different part of a sensation or whatever. But it was surprisingly high. I don't remember the exact correlation it was, but it was pretty high percentage between the actual tongue positioning and the idea of forward placement. Yeah.
And another thing, I'm producing a lot at the studio, and I found that's also weird. The more the sound engineer is searching for a more forward sound, and this misconception, that's why it's really cool to have a vocal coach in between sound engineer and artist, because usually when sound engineer is saying I need more forward sound, and the singer is trying literally to put the sound forward, the more the strainy the sound is, and not forward at all. But somehow, again, counterintuitive idea of letting the resonance shift slightly backward is increasing the quack or the twang, which is basically is given the a proper forward placement. Basically, the twang or the quack, that's what is
Yeah,
giving you the forward
twang.
placement.
I
Not
absolutely agree with that. I would say that oftentimes when talking about the forwardness, people are talking about twang, and they will sometimes even say that a twangy voice is more resonant.
Mhm.
So, and oftentimes twangy, but not very high larynx. So
Yeah.
usually people will not call very resonant.
Or
But
again with
if
nasality, this
yeah,
misconception, always like this thing. Yeah.
yeah, but if you have this sort of dark but twangy thing, hey, people will often call that more resonant than something like an
For sure. And I also read the paper. I don't quite remember, but it was a research about that was more towards speech phonation, and it was about more forward placement versus throaty
Mm-hmm.
sound, which is kind of and this throaty sound was developed by there were not taking people who are talking with throaty quality, there were taking people who are projecting with forward placement, trying to replicate the throaty sound, and they're trying to talk more kind of like this, and it has to do with the tongue placement going
Yeah,
far back
yes.
and down and like pushing down on the larynx and on the folds, and there's a Kermit the Frog sound. So it was, yeah, also interesting. Okay, back into the idea. So the first format, yeah, the second format, the tongue idea. Let's talk about the third format and the lips action actually
Mm-hmm.
with the R thing, which is kind of
Oh yeah,
lowering yeah,
retroflex
yeah, yeah.
are. So I haven't done that much work on that. I have been to the acoustic vocal pedagogy thing with Ian Howell and Chadley Ballantyne and Ken Bozeman, and Chadley Ballantyne likes to talk about the retroflex R. Personally, I haven't done a lot of work with that. I find that higher formants, so F3 and higher, very minimal movements start to influence it quite a lot. And I would say that then for most singing, it's really hard to use, except if you are very specifically like doing like overtone singing.
That's what I'm gonna. Yeah, and specifically
Yep.
the lips. This thing, basically, when you're like taking regular creaking, and you can manipulate,
Yep.
like, yeah. So I was talking specifically about the lips action in
Mm.
third format, and about the fourth and fifth, guys. Like for us the most important are the first and the second. That's what you can hear by your ear and you can really manipulate
Mm.
when you've got
I
into
would.
the action.
So even the higher formants will have impact on like how we perceive the sound color,
Yeah.
whether it sounds more bright or more light or more dark. But I yeah, uh,
In this case, let's go more towards singular formant cluster, which is
mhm.
basically coupling the third, fourth, and fifth formant
Yes,
into
exactly.
something one idea.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
So then let me actually share this thing. So it's very commonly talked about, especially for male opera singing.
Mm-hmm.
So Singer's formant cluster is bringing, as you said, formants 3, 4, and 5 closer together for a big boost of energy around like 3 kilohertz, which is known to help opera singers cut through an orchestra.
Because
Uh,
of the frequency, the orchestra
yes.
lowered
So
the frequency, so you're above the orchestra. That's
yes.
important in
So
opera
that's what
singing.
we have here actually. We have the frequencies here and then
Mm-hmm.
the basically the SPLs, the decibels.
Mm-hmm.
And the orchestra would be the plain black line.
Mm-hmm.
And then regular speech is the dotted line above that. And you can see that they overlap quite well, which means that regular speaking would probably not be heard by an orchestra, it would get drowned.
Yep.
However, then an orchestra and a male singer, suddenly you get this huge peak here between 2 and 3 kilohertz, which is also, by the way, the area between 2 and 5 kilohertz or so is where our human ears are the most sensitive.
Exactly.
So basically, when Sundberg talks about this, he talks about a narrow epilarynx and a wide pharynx to get this sort of clustering. For non-classical singing, I would say that still there is certain benefits to having strong energy in that part of the spectrum. Not necessarily having a singer's formant cluster in that way, which clusters all those together, but just having more twang, so narrower epilarynx, will already provide a bit of boost in that area. And that also cuts through with a band much better.
For sure.
And it will help your audio engineer a lot in bringing the voice forward.
Yeah. And another thing, basically, again, all these terms, when we're talking about singer formant cluster, it has to do with the twang quack, or like really narrowed inlet in when you're going out of the larynx. But comparing more operatic approach to a more contemporary, as you wish, like belting, there's the difference. Basically, the similar thing is you are narrowing the epilarynx.
The epilarynx, yes.
But
absolutely.
like you mentioned before, so you can narrow specifically different areas within the vocal tract. In opera, you're narrowing the epilarynx and you are widening the back part of the throat. That's why high soft palate, lowered larynx, blah, blah, blah. So you're giving the basically narrowed open. For contemporary F1, H2 coupling, belt, yell, stuff like that, you are narrowing and here, and usually you're narrowing here by lowering the palate a bit more, letting the larynx rise, raising the tongue. So, and here and here. But the idea is narrowing is not squeezing, because a lot of the times when someone is trying to get this idea, it's also with the twang or quack. It's not about like...
Yeah. So I think what we commonly do is we tie together narrowings and pressing of the vocal folds, because so we sort of want to feel the narrowing, and then what we can feel is when there's a high buildup of pressure under the vocal folds, and that sort of, but that's not what we're talking about. So this narrowing, I often talk about open twang, where you have that narrowing, but it feels very
cutting through.
Yes.
So this quack or twang shouldn't stop the process. You shouldn't, like, when you're creating the quack, it shouldn't stop you from phonating. It's actually giving you the
opposite. It should be easier.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
The difference between sometimes people trying to get twang will end up and it's very squeezed.
Total stop of the process.
Hey has quite a lot of twang. It's not hey, it doesn't have the dullness. It has a lot more hey, but it's very easy. It's loud, free flowing.
But I think probably with more kind of curbing oriented sounds or medium mode, usually you do feel a bit of except narrowing of epilarynx on the folds pattern slightly more because of the ventricular folds. So you do feel what I call click, like going through the like.
So I have a theory on this, which is really difficult to test without electromyographic studies,
Pointing
which
needle into.
yes, which are considered unethical. So basically, I think that as we tilt the larynx more and use less TA, we try to basically compensate for it a little bit and then pinch the vocal folds together a little bit more. So I
Yeah.
think that held back feeling, along with the tilting of the larynx, has a little bit to do with the LCA
Lateral
and the
cricoarytenoid
yes,
muscle.
and the interarytenoid
Yeah.
arytenoid, uh, basically pressing the vocal folds together a slight bit more, but slight is the key word there.
Yes.
So we
Yeah. Yeah.
don't want we want ah, just a little bit of
But
that.
not.
Yeah, yeah, not that
Definitely.
either. Yeah,
And
yes.
and that's really also interesting topic. Remember, you were talking about Oasis and Gallagher type of sound,
Oh yeah.
and again, when we are comparing this to, like, I know, even Bruce Dickinson type of sound,
Hmm.
much stretchier. The folds feels more
Oh yeah. Again,
tight rather
just
than
to point
short and
out,
relaxed.
yeah. Now, when we talk about Bruce Dickinson, it's not the Tears of the
Yeah,
Dragon,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is like
yeah,
more thick, but like think Wasted Years chorus, where it goes
yeah.
higher up and then it gets a bit more held back sounding, and yeah.
And by the way, about Bruce Dickinson, like the classic idea of going from super open timbre to slightly more close, run to the hill, run fast, and you are like, so if you're gonna practice this, I think that's the best option, because just try to hear it going from run fast, like it's going much more narrowed than run to the. But you know what? The again weird thing. One student of mine sent me a video, maybe 2 years ago, of Bruce Dickinson promoting his book and
Oh
talking
yeah.
about voice.
Yes.
And when he said you need to go like in this area, ah, I'm going into the head voice. Ah, that's head voice, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's a matter of terminology. So if
exactly.
you look at the LVM paper, laryngeal vibratory mechanisms, they actually talk about the male head voice in the operatic sense still actually being M1.
Gotcha.
So I think if we're talking about the SLS definition of head voice, that would definitely be M2 or
Falsetto.
in CVT falsetto.
Because they're
Uh,
defining head voice and falsetto.
yes, yes,
Abducted, adducted.
yes. But so I think Bruce Dickinson is coming from that. He probably worked like with an opera coach who
For
used
sure.
the terms in that way, where male head voice was still this strong M1 sound, but
Yeah.
with a closed timbre.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think really cool idea if you are into sympathetic vibration and trying to find something which is going to help you. The idea of chest voice resonates in the head. I found back in the day really helpful. Really helpful. How, because usually the problem is you are losing the higher false contact going higher, which is leading to a more lighter sound. And if you are trying to find really powerful sound, which is similar to like chest sound in the upper part, you need somehow to release the resonance, but not release the false fully. But thinking chest voice, meaning I'm still remaining with the like fully closed folds, like full length and stuff like that, but allowing the basically second formant there and higher formants, basically helping in maintaining the chord closure into the upper range. So yeah, let me check. Okay, resonance raising layer and back front, tuning the vowel, detuning the vowel. Yes, non-linear thing.
Okay.
So basically, like I said before, when we are deciding what the sound is going to be, has to do with the intrinsic muscles here and how the folds are going to be adducted or compressed.
Mhm.
Let's talk about this a bit.
Yes. So I'm guessing what you mean is how formants affect that.
Yep.
So basically, if you are getting destructive interference and you want a more powerful sound, you will probably be inclined to push more. So it will actually affect, you will start pressing
Mm-hmm.
your vocal folds together. So actually, also the feedback loop will have an interaction on you wanting to basically try to force the sound into being something that it's not
Yeah.
without the right coupling. So that's one thing. Just the fact that the you have destructive or constructive interference will interfere with your decision making and how easy you're making the sound, what you're doing with your vocal folds. But then there's another mechanical aspect of it, which is basically if you get a low pressure front between your vocal folds as they're attempting to close, that will basically suck them together.
Yeah.
So that helps the vocal folds close quicker. Uh, but if you get a high pressure front between your vocal folds as they're attempting to close, that will actually make it harder for the vocal folds to close,
Yes.
which will then dampen the vibration. So, or make the closure slower, softer. It will
Weaker.
get less of the high frequency energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that aspect, actually, the previous cycle of vibration influences the next one.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. And yeah, that's really important to understand that again, except the compression or the adduction, it's not just like that. So that's the cycle, and the cycle is starting from lower lip,
Yep.
then mid, then high, and that's like you have the like divergent and convergent idea of like idea. And you know what? A couple of things about all those terms, because a lot of the times I was asked about, is this mixed belt? Is this belt? And like for me, when I'm trying to think about mixed belt, usually I'm thinking about belting, but at the same time reducing the
With a hold. Yeah.
destiny. Like, yeah,
Yes. That's what I hear people demonstrating the most commonly. But sometimes I feel voice nerds sometimes tend to get a little bit too preoccupied with what a certain thing is called
yeah,
and
yeah.
instead of the sound.
And that's why they're searching for a specific coach, because they're searching to be taught with a specific term. I think
Yeah.
not the sound quality, but the term. And
Yeah.
that's because actually I was thinking about mixed belt, and for me, I would probably not go with more kind of medium mode or curbing. For me, maybe edge is
Yeah,
smart
reduced
or
density
hard mode.
edge.
Well, that's because belting is not being held back. In my opinion, it's not belt when you're holding back. You're more
Yeah,
crying rather than shouting.
that's a matter of terminology again. What do you want to call what? So what I really love about CBT is there's a centralized institution that is basically deciding what gets called what and
Hmm.
keeps things in check. When you don't have that, everyone interprets the terms their own way, and then it's a little bit, people, you can have two different people using the same terms in a different way.
For sure. Usually
And
it's like
there's a
that.
lot of that.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot of that. out there.
Again, like with head voice, falsetto, and toot. Like what?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let me check one last thing. Embouchure, mimic, yeah, sound colors. Yeah, about sound colors. Usually from bright to dark, it has to do with the darker the sound, it affecting the larynx position. Like, okay, the bigger the space, the darker the sound color. The smaller or narrow the space, the higher the frequency energy being
Yes,
boosted.
in general.
Exactly. It's
There
like
are things that are different. For example, like if we talk about the jaw opening,
mhm.
I can actually make the space smaller and get a lower first torment. So that
Yeah, yeah, and
and
like
I have a
this.
dinosaur to demonstrate that as well. So if I squeeze its jaw here, the
Cool,
pitch goes down.
cool.
So
Okay.
this is a toy dinosaur I've had since age 5. So
Wow, cool. And you know what the tricky thing is with more like Kermit Quacked tone? It definitely has dark sound, but the lyrics is extremely high in this position. But usually, when you're hearing it, a lot of the times, people are like, I think probably it's like super low lyrics. The sound color is so dark. Usually, it's completely different.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, guys, it was wow. 2 hours feels
yeah.
like 5
If
seconds.
anyone is still watching,
It's like,
congratulations.
but anyway, I think I would recommend to discover all those things, not like 2 hour long marathon, rather than like good cup of tea and like step by step with notebooks with some researches and like notes, back and forth, rewind, rethink, try to mimic. We'll do all the examples. That's really important because a lot of the times nerdy stuff, it's more about naming and like going from this thing to this thing. You know exactly what F1H2 is, F1H1, H2H F2H3. About the modes, like everything is here. Just learn and try to incorporate. Man, thanks a lot. It was such a pleasure, really.
Thank
Like
you. It
amazing.
was yeah, great being here.
I think we're gonna do another one, and let's bring Aaron and let's talk about something.
Awesome. Let's do
Cool,
that.
cool. Gonna post it soon. Tag you as usual. And guys, yeah, check Rockvox channel.
Yep.
Guaranteed, a lot
And
of really cool stuff.
yeah, and we so if all of this was too much, we usually so we cover. Let's say we put the same knowledge in a much more user friendly package usually. So we try to like not talk so deeply nerdy, but explain these things more with the end user in mind, which we did today as well. But we also went really deep, so people who want that super deep knowledge can hear
So
about that as
basically, if
well.
you are turning on our video and you hear "Hello, that's me, Alex, that's Ivan," and after that, okay, let's talk about probably I would recommend to also check Rockvox.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But I think it actually gets better as we go along. So in the beginning, we cover some of the really tough stuff, and then later it got more into like, okay, how do we use this in practice? And that's
Mm-hmm.
probably the most important thing for
Cool.
singers.
Cool.
Yeah.
Brother, thanks again. It was really, really cool. Yeah.
Was. Thank you for inviting me again.
For sure, bro. For sure. See you next time. Check it out, guys, and hope you like it. Our see you soon, bro.
See ya.
Bye
Bye.
bye. See ya.